Hi, I'm Christine McNair, and I'm the author of Conflict, published by BookThug. For me, conflict is about working through different systems. It's about confronting different realities. It's about, often it's about bad communication. That's kind of a relative strong theme throughout the book. And for me, it's about, ultimately it's about resistance. That is the point of the book for me. The book, when I was working on it, I started working on a few pieces, and it was about the time that my reading changed. So about the time where I started being kind of really rabid about all the types of books that I was reading. So that, between that and some kind of personal conflict, those two things tended to fuel that manuscript. So that was a manuscript that I wrote within a very intense period of time, just running through everything I could, as much as I could. So. Yeah, I wish I could come up with a really logical answer that I could say that I did, you know, I followed this protocol and I thought about it really intellectually and I really worked really hard like that, but I didn't. I just kind of created this mass, and some out of that came poems fairly directly, but then also there came this large mass of text. And that tends to be how I work. So I tend to work with a giant word file, sometimes where there's poems that are discrete, but sometimes where there's just a mass of text that then I function into poems. And because I'm working within that same rather ridiculously romantic stream, they all tend to be of a kind. So when I was working through conflict, things tended to be of a kind because they were from that same period where I was reading the same things, working through the same things. And then I would do things where I would play with older texts, or I would play with other poems that I'd already done and cannibalize them. I was very fond of that for this project. So. Yeah, well, the poems do, in a sense, they're of a kind, but they're not the same. And I'm interested in things that aren't the same. I don't know. They fit together for me, but I'm interested in how the individual nucleus of the poem works within a larger collection. So for me, I was interested in things like sound, but I was also interested in things like layout on the page, and I was interested in messing with old poems and regurgitating text and tearing it apart. So it for me, it was all, for me, a kind of resistance, but it was also separate in its own way as well. My ideal reader is anyone that wants to read the book, to be honest. But I also think that my ideal reader would be an omnivore, so someone that is interested in all kinds of things rather than one specific way of writing or one specific way of poetry. So for me, that would be an intelligent omnivore. It's a way of disrupting a straight line. It's a way of disrupting the flow. But for me, I think also because I work as a book conservator, for me, the fragments always carry part of the whole. So for me, there's always a lot you can tell from a fragment, and I'm interested in seeing how far you can push that, how far you can fragmentize something and still get a meaning out of the whole, and how far you can retain certain aspects of the whole through fragmentation, and how you can completely change the meaning and be tricksy about it by doing that, by disrupting a line and being fragmented and disrupting a lyric. So, if that makes sense. Well, the interludes were stemmed from the fact that I had someone tell me once that they liked my Facebook statuses better than they liked my poems. And they also wanted a time machine. So my method of doing that in that book, which was kind of a poke in the eye, was running my Facebook statuses backwards in time, which I found interesting, and I thought it worked really well as a frame for this book, which was set within a very written and set within a very specific point of time. And just the amount of text that you generate through social media and other things, and just how it's this really inane or really interesting or quirky bit of nonsense that you just put together. And when you put it all together, it streams in this very strange way, especially when Facebook, it used to be you were writing, you wouldn't say I, you would say Christine. So I found that interesting to run the text backwards, to go back to the beginning of before the book was written. And for me, that worked really well as a frame because it fit a lot of the themes that I was talking about in the poems. The politics of I, uppercase I, to me, I find fun to work with. I find that I don't like avoiding the I. I tried to do that and was kind of taught to do that in numerous instances. And I find that there are ways of working in that I enjoy and enjoy reading. But for myself, for this particular book, because so much of it was about directly confronting different things, the I seemed essential. The I to me is assertion, and similarly, I, E-Y-E, is your particular perspective flawed or correct or absolutely disjointed? That's how you see the world, and therefore when you're presenting the capital I, and the I, it's necessary for the kind of poems that I was working on in this book, where you're confronting different people and systems and quite deliberately avoiding erasure. So the I is difficult to erase when it's presented directly. Shifts. Our breath, this hand, is full of conditions. My move, is this okay? And move, you're in no condition. Then this is full of conditions. That movement, here we go, shift weight, stockpile jam jars, ratch to cellar doors. And please, could you, then this, and a condition. Breathe, hitched breath, and this, if you could, then this, condition. What condition? Is this okay? Is this okay? Are you okay? A Fool's Grace. Bed me with lavender, tattoo some cuneiform abjad into cardiac vessels, hot-cut radiance blister-packed, a 2-for-1 offer of woad bled over bit lip. Wrinkled stems pollinate, broken umbrellas debride torn silk back into lover's spit, pacify capillaries. But just let go, release my feckless heart, full punch to the ticker. So be it. Wraith-born, woken earth-caged, haunting uncommon but not impossible, I've taken up mountains, the predation of peregrines. Horoscope says I'll tear me to pieces. Byzantine fire water lakes, a call to arms, a call to bed, the ghosting of unlit tables. Shroud full of beckoning bad, there are whole days for which I can no longer account. My fey-bodied presence nicks nerve endings, unleashes hell flowers, a saucer full of blossoming petrol. Shellacked fiat, fiat, fiat.